Hello, and thank you for downloading this episode of Discussing Documentaries. Today we are talking about the Yes Men, the World Trade Organization. It is a Patreon pick from Dale, so huge shout out of love to Dale. Is this a documentary, Rick?
It is, and
of sorts, right?
It definitely is. It's just very different to what
very
we watched
different
in terms of how it's shot.
Yeah,
because I think this story, if it was made today, would be a 3-part Netflix bonanza, maybe. Whereas it's clearly 3 minutes of a video camera, but what they do is a brilliant story and very poignant as well. Because I got to be honest, I put off watching this when you sent me another fucking YouTube clip of what Dale wants us to do. I looked at it in the title that said the word satire, and I'm like, this isn't gonna be it. This is gonna be like Matt's weird goat testicle one he wanted to do. That was a cartoon, not a documentary.
Was that cartoon?
Yeah, it was done with animations about the history of goat balls or something like that. You're like, we should do this. It looks hilarious, and I was just like, oh, better make a phone call.
So yeah, the fact that you messaged me 3 times, I was like, oh, this is going to be an uphill battle. But saying that, I watched it and here we are. So Dal picked this out. Big shout out of love. And all right, let me just give you the info on the doc. First of all, that young man talking there is Rick Walton and I am Matt Wills. There we go. It's all done. Right, the provider is YouTube.
You changing up your intro.
I'm based in Essex, man. I've had to up my game.
That was one of Matt Will's like shrines for the week of what he needs to do. That's on a whiteboard somewhere. Be in the moment. Be now.
Think Dr. Brown. Think Dr. Brown. So yeah, it's on YouTube. I'll chuck the link in. It's from the year 2003. The money is $394,000. God, Bill Burr when I read, right? I am fucking Bill Burr. $394,154, which is not a bad chunk of change, right? That probably would have made what? That probably would have cost, what do you reckon, 50 grand to make that?
I don't know. I can't even guess it because to me it does look like, we're doing this thing. Steve, hold the camera.
Yes.
It's not like boom mic operated from the looks of it. It's not, like I say, I think this has kind of opened my eyes to more amateur documentaries.
I would say this is an amateur documentary, and bear in mind it's from the year 2003, so it's 18 years old. The accolades, it was the winner of the Amsterdam International Documentary Film Festival audience winner. And here's the blurb.
I think when you see the selections on the night, it's whoever goes first wins or last. It'd be like a comedy competition. Whoever's on first or whoever's... Because no one's going to remember all of them.
I don't want to buck the trend there, but when I won my comedy competition, I was bang on in the middle. But, I'm just saying.
Wasn't that a gong show?
Shut up, Rick. So the blurb. It was a good gong show.
I didn't win. Everyone else lost.
The weird thing is my mate John was on that.
Is that the one in the Chinese restaurant?
It was in the Chinese restaurant. Yeah, in Leicester.
Really funny moment in that. And I know you probably won't ever hear this, so you can leave it in. But I spoke to this guy. I'm waiting there because you got to wait downstairs where normal people are eating. You go upstairs for the competition. And a guy comes up with a flower pot hat on, and you're like, he's not here for fucking prawn crackers. And I'm like, how are you doing? He's like, old school fella. He's like, it is near your age, Matt. And he's got that Den Perry voice from Phoenix Nights. Like, how you doing?
Right, yeah.
And he goes, I'm not happy with the promoter. He referred to me as my real name. I went, oh, right. What's your stage name? And he looked at me dead in the eye and went, Willa Nilla. And you know, one of those moments when you're not meant to laugh at that. You're not meant to put to bed all that training you had as a child to be mean to someone who's put themselves out there. Just he's allowed to be what willy-nilly.
Hold it together, Wharton. Hold it together.
Don't you ever refer to me as Derek or whatever his name was. My name's willy-nilly. And I'll just never forget that hearing that stage name just cracked me up on the inside more so than anything that happened that night at the whole competition.
I love that gig. Here's the blurb. A comedic...
I pissed off the reviewer. That's the last part. So I did.
Was that the Nottingham guy?
Yeah, the WordPress guy comes up and he goes, "Oh, I'm a reviewer." I went, "Oh, who for?" He went, "Oh, I run Nottingham WordPress." So I went, "Oh, it's a blog." And then the way I said that, his shoulders slumped and he didn't talk to me for the rest of the time. He just looked straight through me.
Would you say your career has gone up or downhill or stagnated since that night with him?
What? Since I didn't get a review from the Nottingham WordPress blog?
Yeah,
I would say it's went unimpeded.
Oh, okay. You think he hasn't hurt you in any way. He is genuinely a lovely man. He really is.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is. To all you guys who find out he's a reviewer and crawl around him.
I know. I found out afterwards that he was a reviewer, which helped.
Yeah.
Especially when I invited him back and bought him a drink.
I had a great one once. The guy goes, "That was amazing. I do reviews for the Times." I went, "Oh, you're reviewing this one?" He goes, "Oh, no, it's my night off." I'm like, "Oh, brilliant."
Thanks, mister. Right, here's the blurb. A comedic documentary which follows the Yes Men, who are a small group of prankster activists as they gain worldwide notoriety for impersonating the World Trade Organization on television and at business conferences around the world. This felt... The year 2000 doesn't feel that long ago, right? Like in my head. But it was 20 odd years ago. This was 2003. It feels like a different
20
time.
years to you are where the least amount of new stuff happens.
What are you on about? I've got an iPhone 6.
Exactly.
I'm rocking it, man.
Exactly. But if you look at the 20 years to me, that puts me back to like 11.
Yeah.
So if you think of the changes you go through, school, college, sixth form, uni, realizing what council taxes, and then on from there, it's a hell of a journey as opposed to I'm kind of settled within my career. It's just a different office I'm looking at. It's a different fad each year, but you know what? Things are pretty stable.
From 2003, I'm in my third house. I'm on my second relationship within that time frame. I'm no longer engaged. I'm no longer going to have a wedding. What else am I? And I own some cats.
Not the same ones from back then. But...
Sadly, no. But here we are. Yeah, that's a good point though, right? But it just seems like when you watch this documentary felt really dated. Like looking at the laptop kit they used, the graphics they used to make videos to get their point across. It just felt... even the gags, you're like, oh, that's a cheap, dirty gag, isn't it? Ugh.
See, for me, even how the story started is funny. So they initially did it with George W. Bush's website was George W. Bush. So they registered George Bush as a website. And this is when he was governor of Texas about a run for president, I guess. And they kept all of his actual policies, but just changed the pictures.
Yeah.
So like it was him giving the finger to people of color, and it was about how he's polluting Texas and looking forward to doing it in the world. There's actual statistics of what he'd done, and you can see George Bush has been interviewed about it and has got that much notoriety. He's then referring to, of course, there should be limits to freedom. These people are garbage, man. Yeah. But just a little quote like that with, the right-wing wank flannel is the word freedom, which we are currently dealing with a lot today.
The company who initially distributed this was a company called United Artists. Now, that's the reason that's relevant is because United Artists was set up by Charles Chaplin, Mary Pickford, and I think Errol Flynn. And they set it up because they no longer wanted to be owned by the studio, which is how it used to work back then. So the stars were owned by Warner Brothers and MGM.
Or MGM and all that.
Yeah. And they were like, no, we're going to set up our own, and we own us. Sadly, I don't think United Artists made it past one of the recessions, but they lasted, almost 100 years. So
probably due to poor production.
Probably, yeah. And the fact that they put bloody actors in charge. What do actors know? These people play pretend for a living. I've got a real thing about actors. I think I wanted to be an actor, and I've mentioned this before, and I'm not one. And that
you still could be, Matt.
It's disgusting.
Why don't you?
Shut up, Rick. Let's refer to my earlier point of you shutting up. I don't, because I look down on it so much.
The World Trade Organization. So people registered the World Trade Organization's address and just give it to them because they're like, look, what can you guys do with this?
Yes. Yeah. And they get up to, I guess, what you could only call shenanigans.
Yeah. And this is a funny part because this was your criteria for me to give it the time of day as a documentary. So it has one talking head for the first, 75% of it. And if you're going to get one talking head, you get him Michael Moore.
And how good does he look? I mean, the last 18 years haven't been kind to him or me, but I would say I've fared better than him.
I said the opposite, to be honest. Not compared to the last time we've seen him, but on Michael Moore's shows around that time, I went, oh, he really does have a makeup team on those things.
I thought he looked superb compared to when we saw him.
On the last one, he was looking a bit old.
Yeah. But to be fair, he must be, what is he, my age? He must be a little bit older than me. So
he got sent, so on the Bush one, they got sent like a cease and desist, and then that went viral in the newspapers, because again, this is before the internet. There's very little talk of the internet throughout.
Yeah, because it's so dated. Whereas the internet was definitely around. I remember being on the internet in the mid-90s.
And then Michael Moore does his function brilliantly of just like explaining what the problem is with the WTO, which is like they kind of impose tariffs on the poorer countries and the rich get more control.
But he said the World Trade Organization was set up to help poor countries, but it was hijacked by corporations to build them more wealth. And I don't want to hijack this myself with my right-leaning ideals here.
I knew there was going to be a chat here on this one. These Mexican villages don't deserve water. What they have to pay for that?
Well, no. The weird thing is, I'm so conflicted over this because a business's job is to make money, and it would seem that the people who end up running businesses will tread on anybody. And then we seem to be surprised by that. Yet this has been happening for thousands of years. And we're still shocked that it's still going on. The Romans did what? Good God. They invaded Britain for trade.
I think the shock comes from there's almost like a sense that the World Trade Organization is meant to regulate and stop that relentless yoke over human life.
Says who?
Well, I think it's just, I don't know. That's
Yeah,
says the World
them. Trade. Yeah,
this is the same as the ethically sourced. You. Yeah, it's the ethically sourced fish.
Yes,
in Seaspiracy is exactly what I thought about. Now, the WTO came up in my world last year, and it's the first time I'd heard of them.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was the first time I'd heard of them, because the WTO had put Saudi Arabia on a ban for piracy or a watch list for piracy.
Here we go. Yep.
So the WTO report was a big deal within the Newcastle United takeover. That was one of the things that was to be used as evidence. They've since been removed from it, so thankfully they've paid the right people because they're still nicking shit.
I thought you would have said it was a wrestler called Terry Oliver or something. It was...
Yeah. So what happens is they get an email inviting them to a conference in Finland to speak on behalf of the World Trade Organization.
Yes, yeah.
And then Hank Hardy, UNRWA, was born, which is, they get this actor in. Now, this actor, again, there's fucking fantastic at what he's doing during this. So they create this like fictional character, and they go and do like a satirical send up
Yeah.
of what they think the WTO is to try and create awareness.
Now that actor is called Andy Bickelbaum. So he's, just so you know who he is, he's the, and he'll pop up shortly, he's the gold suit guy. That's Andy. And then the other fella, because they're a crew, right? They're like Rick and Matt. The other guy is Mike Bonanno. And I think if I go into witness protection, I'm going to fuck this up now. Bonanno would be my name.
It did. That's another thing when their names first came up, I'm like, Bickelbaum and Bonanno. This isn't a documentary, Matt. They're fucking about.
Hang on. You can't blame me. Dale picked it. Dale is a Patreon, right? He's a bloody good Patreon as well. If
Listen,
not,
Dale
he's an outlier.
There.
He's one of the first Patreons. He's up there with the old NG, Stolly and Lime, the couple of new guys who have just jumped in, whose names will get a proper shout out of love later down the line.
Dale recommended, or I believe Dale's present was us doing the skateboard one, which I said he can recommend more.
Yep.
And I gotta be honest, after watching this one, which is if there's a link on our Facebook page to it, I still say he can recommend more. I'm not raising the tariffs on our Patreon feed for recommendations, because this is a good documentary and it's free.
It is a good documentary. It is free, yeah, and it did genuinely, although it did genuinely make me think, are you all dumb to not think that this is going on? I genuinely thought that as I was watching it. I'm like, but we all know the world is incredibly corrupt.
Well, they're not like, oh my God, they're doing this. They're like, hey, more people need to know they're doing this. Okay. Yeah. Like there needs to be more awareness spread of this. People need to be able to have oversight of this that is crippling economies. There's some statistics later that we'll get to. And Matt will brush under the carpet. But
what I liked about Andy Bickelbaum is he works at a firm which created the program SimCity, the game.
I loved SimCity, the game.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Never played it. But he put in a bit of the game where all the male characters suddenly are only wearing swimming trunks, and then they start to snog one another. And then this made it to the news as if SimCity was
kicked off for homophobia.
Yeah. You're like, what? Hang on a sec.
But that was in SimCity. That was Sim Helicopter. So you'd go, right, okay, get the lift, the drag, the rotation correctly. Okay, now bring it around. What, men kissing? And it's terrible graphics. Like it is a stretch to realize what the gender is of the people that are kissing, because the graphics were that poor back then.
But why is that so upsetting?
Because
it was a different time and we've evolved so much.
There's still people complaining about the evolution of that. Do you know what I mean? That there is still people who will never watch Doctor Who now because they've had a female Doctor Who. There is people that, turn off Emmerdale after two blokes kiss, and that's that tarnished. I watched that show for 35 years. Never again. Not if they're doing that in the wolf pack.
Yeah.
There is just people where it's just drilled into them where they won't. So I think this is brilliant. And then what they also do is they do the Barbie Liberation Organization, where they buy a whole bunch of Barbies, a whole bunch of G.I. Joes, and they switch the voices round to the others. So you have a camp G.I. Joe saying, let's have a friend party, and you have a Barbie going, let's go to war. And I find that fucking hilarious. And that went viral over the Christmas cycle as well. Matt does not look happy about this.
No, because do you know what they did? They ruined Christmas for some kids. So this kid who wanted a G.I. Joe, who's, he's going to, let's go to war. His G.I. Joe is saying, oh, let's wear some nice dresses. Hang on, that kid's Christmas is ruined.
It's fine.
Not for the kid, it isn't.
They would have got a refund, got a different one. No one's Christmas was ruined, Matt.
But that Christmas day is, listen, it's going to be like the Christmas day, right, where my dad bought me a silk kimono, and I went upstairs and...
Jesus. If he tells you then invited some mates round.
I went upstairs, smoked a joint, and it was resin, and hot rocks fell out of it and melted the kimono. I ruined Christmas. And then I think I then drank 4 bottles of Baby Sham and puked up. That's the same as this G.I. Joe thing. The thing is, I did that. I didn't...
See,
and I only ruined
very
two
much
people's
like
Christmases.
the message of toxic masculinity within those toys, you ruining your silk kimono probably saved at least 3 early relationships of yours.
I was doing mankind a favour. Is that what you were saying?
You're there for your 90s nunchucks going.
Right, when my dad asked me, like, "Where's that kimono?" It's upstairs. I don't want to wear it yet. I was so goofed.
Listen, I've got to be honest. If it gets to the point that they see you in the kimono, it's not going to be the hot rocks that's the deal breaker, Matt. That's the thing.
The thing is, right? I'm really against these two guys, and I'm against this documentary as much as I enjoyed it.
Wow. I say this to you all the time. I can never guess what your opinion is going to be. I can never guess it. Go on.
But here's the strange thing. I'm really against these two blokes, right? But part of me is with them because back in 2000 and I think it was about 2003, funny enough, I was doing silly little stunts. Like I changed out the signs once in a lift saying in the event of emergency, don't think about that bit in The Omen or the opening scenes of the film Speed. And I changed that in all the corporate lifts. Because I thought, oh, that's hilarious. Because I was working nights and no one knew. So I'd go around and I'd change signs and I'd, just silly stuff like that.
God, if you knew Matt, if you're a Patreon listener, you're going to get to see a live feed to some of these. And you can just imagine such a little terror scamp with his ginger afro running around there, just giggling away like Dennis the Menace.
Massive hair, huge hair. My hair was massive.
See, because I'm from the different. I actually really like these guys. That where the issue came in is the charisma is entirely in the stunt.
Yes, it's not in them, right? Because they're activists. They're really
activists.
serious.
They're very clever. It's like watching a writer's room for comedy as opposed to seeing a fucking sitcom.
Good analogy. Exactly that.
They are very, very much just deathly serious. You can tell they don't really want it because when they talk on camera, they talk directly about what they're doing and then it's done. Do you know what I mean? It's not like the modern day where there'll be some, like, modern day, the people who do this is fucking Borat. It's Ali G. It's these larger-than-life characters. And I think this is almost, I think you're probably going back around the same time for when this stuff started.
Yes, it was. Ali G,
These guys are so much more covert. And to the point where even the people within the stunts struggle to realize that they're a part of a stunt.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
there's no mistaking after you spoke to Ali G. Did they ever tell you what Ali G used to do to get the quotes from people?
No.
All right, so this is an interesting thing I heard. Basically, Ali G would turn up, the whole get-up, the sunglasses, full makeup and everything, right? And then he would sit down and you would talk seriously about the politics and about everything they do for about an hour. And it was almost like, look, this is about getting the youth involved in politics and to know the serious subjects. And then for like 3 minutes of that, you would switch up and go, so how much do you think fucking skunk costs where you're from? And they're like, what? And then they'll be like, what was that 2 minutes about? And then it'll be chopped down to those 2 minutes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because if he came at them straight like that, you'd walk out. You'd be like, fuck this guy. I'm not not being set up by that.
So he hits them as himself, right? As Sacha Baron Cohen almost.
As a very intelligent man, which is what these guys are, yeah.
And then he switches down to the bloke from, was it Hounslow, Ali G?
Within the lore
character
of Ali G, it is
the Hounslow Massive?
Bracknell, Berkshire, the Berkshire Massive, Bracknell way.
Guess what I'm going to say now?
What's that?
Never seen it.
Never seen it. Never mind. You're too busy changing out signs.
So bringing down the corporates one lift at a time. Go me. I was so pleased when I did that.
If you got a flux capacitor or a thing from Terminator, you'd go back in the future. What would you change? Someone probably got bad health and safety advice from that sign, and that's going to affect the company's bottom line. So this is what they're doing. So, right, you've seen them, and they're doing things like they get emails all the time from people who just see the website to the WTO.
Yeah.
And they will then answer as if they are the WTO as best of what they think the WTO would say.
Yeah.
They get this invite, so they're right, we're going to have to give a lecture in Finland on the future of textiles. So he goes to a mate from uni's house, which again... I think I've just got so fucking paranoid because I know what people are like where I now live. He goes and he checks their mailbox for the right person. He reaches into their mailbox and pulls out and goes, yeah, it's Patrick's house. And I just thought, if a neighbour saw someone putting their hand in a mailbox, if they had mailboxes here, how quickly the window would be banged on and there'll be a fucking problem.
Yeah. Oi, you! Leave it! Who are you? And you're running down the street. He set his dogs on you.
To this day, I never look in a window. I do not look in windows. I remember I was walking down the shops once and the guy banged at the window as I looked over and he went, what the fuck are you looking at? And I was like, never.
You are so damaged by your area. The weird thing is, I've been to your area. It's lovely. Although
you've been to my house.
But did I tell you I went to the... I drove out, didn't I? Because you didn't have any coffee for some weird reason that we're not going to get into. I don't know if I've said this on here before. And I went to the shop. I walked around the shop for about 2 minutes, the little local Nisa shop. And eventually a woman came up to me and she went, do you want some help, love? And I went, oh yeah, I'm looking for coffee. Yeah, it's behind the counter. Keeps getting stolen. What? It was £1.99. People are nicking coffee.
Yeah.
Where do you live?
I've lived in like the four corners of this country now, like sporadically or long term. And I went to the shop about 3 weeks back and I saw some kids fucking around with a cigarette lighter. And I'm like, don't look at them. Don't even acknowledge they're there. Do you know what's about to happen? So all I hear is, oh. I'm like, okay, you didn't hear that. You got headphones in. You could be listening to music. And I put my mask on and I'm still walking. He went, how? And I didn't answer. I just got about a foot away from the shop. And he went, you're a fucking daft cunt, you like. I'm going to buy our last chocolates. I got like some fucking Cadbury's caramels or something. Like, can you put that in a bag, please? I think I'm going to get heckled on the way out.
Welcome back home, Richard.
There's people who come round and bark at my dog. This is no bullshit. The other day, there's people who come round and bark at my dog.
To set your dog off because it's a reactive dog?
Yeah.
The little fuckers.
And then when that didn't get a reaction, they banged on the door.
To set the dog barking. How do you stop that? There's only one way to stop that, in my opinion.
What's your solution? Because I've got two.
I would run them over.
Run them over. See, my first wish was.
I mean, it's a bit brutal.
One of my solutions.
I probably wouldn't hit them with a car.
One of my solutions was similar. Because
but you'd have to go through you'd have to do the driving lessons again. You'd have to reapply for your test.
I'll tell you the idea. I'll happily. I don't think these kids are going to be listening to the podcast. So do you know my kitchen where you got the window which is next to the front door, so you can see who's coming and who's going?
Yeah.
Right. And the guy that you helped move in the house with me. I'm going to invite round for a bacon sarnie at 3:25 when school's kicking out.
Oh, that's a much better idea than hit him with a car.
Just going to sit him there and just let nature take its course.
You know what you said the other day? He's just going to run them into the ground until they can't run anymore. Just 5 strides behind them until they just stop and cry.
Banging on the door. Fucking hell.
It's the fact that they've worked it out, and that's because that's going to be sport for the next few months. And what they want from you is a reaction.
I'm aware of them wanting the reaction. I was not too dissimilar at that age.
Exactly.
Now, I've never barked at a dog, but I also know if you run after them, this is happening every time. And good luck come fucking Halloween.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I didn't go out.
Oh,
anyway, how do we get on to
listen, it's funny. But anyway, so they're off to... they're gonna head to Finland, But
they
but
for
this
the
guy,
stunt.
yeah, for the guy. So they go around his and they look in his. That's right. They look in his. They look in his letterbox to check that's him, and he is a costume designer. And he designs them a costume to take to this thing in Finland. And then here's how you know it's dated. He turns up a few months later to deliver the costumes to them, and he is carrying 2 suitcases. They're not on wheels in any way. He is carrying them, and there's no wheels on the suitcases. And that was only 17, 18 years ago. When did wheels first come along on suitcases? How is that a recent thing?
I would like to study you watching something at some point. I really would.
Did you not see him carry the suitcase? You're like, where's the?
I didn't register it. I just remember him looking knackered coming up the stairs.
Yeah, because there's no bloody wheels on the suitcase. That's why he looks so knackered.
So at this point, I'm like, right, these guys, as much as what they're doing, they're not that interesting, and then you see the costume. So the costume's fucking hilarious, really. So it's like an all gold swimsuit.
Yeah.
And it's then got this massive inflatable dick that has a screen on it. And the idea is you can then electrocute remote workers abroad in sweatshops and be in leisure at the same time.
Yeah, you can monitor what they're doing. It's a dick joke.
Yeah.
With props.
But you're doing that during a serious speech for the World Trade Organization. That's the context is where the humor comes in. I'm not like, that's hilarious, it's a massive dick. It's the fact he gets to stand there and be serious while he is describing what sweatshop labor is like. And he's very seriously doing a speech saying, well, this is how we can do remote work of the future.
And the effectively, speech he was gives, true. The weird thing is that suit has, weirdly enough, that has become reality. But instead of a huge phallus reaching out so that the screen's in front of you, it's just our arm. Our arm is there looking at a screen all the time.
And they show you the speeches they give, which is fucking brilliant, because they do them so monotone and so as if it was normal. They start talking about, like, we have a problem in Europe. We need to get rid of the siestas because they're sleeping. And they've got pictures of, like, Italians just asleep. And I remember Matt complaining that in Italy you could get nothing done between certain hours of the day. You then had, you could sell your vote to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
In a way. And they just have these kind of corporate terms that just make it seem like he's legit. But he's also got this ridiculous gold suit on when they get there.
It was brilliant. The weird thing is, just before that, right? So they're invited to speak on CNBC Market Wrap, and they say some genuinely outrageous things with anti-globalization activists. For instance, they say, your problem is you're focused too much on facts and figures. We need to get your children to think our way like we do in the private sector rather than your way, which is all about humanity. We don't want any of that.
Yeah. If we re-educate, and do you remember what I said the other week about the plus sides of fucking climate change? It's not too fucking far off, is it?
No, it's exactly it. Yeah. It's quite a depressing documentary in that respect because we all know the World Trade, well, I know the World Trade Organization is it's there to make money. That's its job. That's true because it's the middle word, trade.
No, but I thought it was a regulatory body is what I thought. I didn't think it was a company with a bottom line. I thought all the companies have to adhere to these bylaws, and if you break them, you then deal with the World Trade Organization. Now, I'd never looked into it before, but that is my assumption. Now, I think it's for people that have that assumption is why these people are doing these documentaries.
Everything is a company with a bottom line. And listen, our podcast, it ain't no different, right? And nor is the NHS is 73 years old today. That is a company with a bottom line. They get money in, and they can only put a certain amount of money out there. And it's horrid, right, to realise that. But we're in a capitalist society, and we've been like that for thousands of years. There's nothing new here. It's almost like people are waking up to it, and you're like, where the fuck have you been?
This is like an age of information, though, Matt. This is the thing. You can be educated. This is how it's run. This is why these people are fucked. This is the people that are fucking them. And you can't just go, well, people have been killing people for years. Don't worry about it. Like it now is a time where you can be socially conscious.
Well,
it's a minefield.
Yes, you can be socially conscious. That doesn't stop them poor people getting fucked over. I am aware of the poor Mexicans who the American corporations are ripping off. Poor them. Anyway, can I have some more products from China, please, on Amazon? The awareness doesn't... You have to do massive action to fix it. And no one is prepared to do the difficult things of the massive action. For instance, even these two guys, right? They need to go and buy a suit that covers up the gold costume. He's like, well, I don't want one that's got too much polyester in. Are you fucking kidding me, mate? The polyester and the other, they're all made by children. Shouldn't you be thinking about what you're buying here?
Well, this made me laugh because I know if you were in this situation, you would have went fucking mental about it. So they go from France to Finland. They want to get there at 8:00, and
I pressed stop at this stage. I pressed stop and I left it. I walked away. I was so angry. How fucking dare they do this? Sorry, I'm interrupting your...
Look.
You tell the audience why I'm so pissed off, Rick.
Now, I would like you as an audience to register the level of annoyance Matt has to the Mexican villages that have been imposed with the tariffs compared to what I'm about to tell you, because this is the baffling tightrope I walk on a daily basis.
I can see why I'm difficult to work with. Now you lay it out like this, it makes complete sense.
This is why when I'm told I can be part of one crew on a stand-up team or another, and someone says, I want Matt Wills as my first pick, I said, fucking have him. And I love Matt. I can talk to him all day long, but... Okay, so... They go from France to the conference in Finland. They want to be there for 8:30 to prep, get the suit on. Because what's going to happen? He's going to do it, and then he's going to rip the suit, have a tearaway suit, and he's going to be wearing this futuristic body thing with a giant dick and a TV on it. And then he's going to seriously explain how you can electrocute child labourers, and it's best for business. And this is in the name of the World Trade Organization.
Yeah, and these two guys are Americans. I'd like to point that out. The yes men are Americans. Yeah.
So they get there in France, they travel to Finland, and they're like, right, we're a little bit behind time. It's just gone 8:20. I would have rather been there for 8. They get to the front desk, and they went, you start in a few minutes. I went, why is that clock say 9:30? Because I didn't account for an hour out in the time zone. So they have to... Okay, Matt, you have your...
Here's my problem with this. Firstly, that's unprofessional. Secondly, they said... The quote they actually said was, what, they have different time zones in Europe? What, yeah, the same as in America, you fucking arsehole. You've got different time zones there. Why wouldn't they have in America? Do you know how the planet works? You're talking about the World Trade Organization. You've got no concept of time zones, yet you're trying to bring down corruption within the World Trade Organization. I'm calling bullshit on you, sir. You are ineffective for the role that you've set out to do. It was disgraceful.
Here's the thing. People have been getting time zone changes wrong for years now. It's nothing new.
Touche, my funny friend. Touche. And here's the other thing, right? He turns up for his talk. And he's not even in costume.
Well, no, because they thought they had more time. That's the problem. So they run to the toilets, and there's 3 of them. Like you said, there's the third guy who's got the camera, and then there's these 2. They run in the toilet, and you literally have his dick and balls hanging out trying to get them into this gold costume at the time. And that's where you know there's not a proper camera guy blocking out the shot. They go in, and they're like, oh, do you mind if we have the coffee now, and then we'll go on? And they do the talking about the times, and all these professional people are sat there for the note-taking. And when he does start, he opened with the time zone thing, and I went, that's what I would have done. I would have tried to make a joke off the top, and they give him nothing back. They give him no laughter or energy
back. Tough crowd, man. Tough crowd.
You can hear pens clicking during that bit, and I know that feeling. And then he goes into this speech.
Great speech.
The speech
Great
itself,
presentation. The graphics.
Again, So the people that go to this are sent from their companies to take notes for their company. So they're paid to be there. They don't really want to be there. They just have to report back what happens. You know what I mean? There's not any eureka moment about to happen with these people.
Yeah.
But he starts off with how the Civil War in America was the least profitable war they've ever had. And you're just like, oh my God. And then he's just like, people previously employed in their home countries are now given valuable skills, and just all this kind of like, it is like very smartly written racist rhetoric. It is so like the satirical side of it is fucking excellent in what he's getting across, and what these people can nod along to and not have a problem with.
Well, because they don't register it.
Yeah, because half of them probably just aren't even. Yeah.
Right. But it's jolly. They were probably out dancing to Denise from another company, the night before till 4 a.m. because they're on a company credit card getting pissed up.
Exactly.
Right. So like, okay, I've got to sit through this shit, have I? And effectively what they're saying is the fact that slavery eventually would lead to very happy workforce, and the fact that they wouldn't want to leave if you just enslave them in their own country because they'd have nowhere to go. He goes, that's where we went wrong with slavery. And you're like...
Wait, what he said? No, he says what they... Because, again, this is a satirical speech. I can't say that enough. We're not going, this is so smart. If they didn't... No, it is fucking massively wrong. But the context of... You got to watch the documentary to see just the context of what he's doing.
And I'd like to point out, I don't support what they're saying. I know I lean a little to the right, but I'm not in on what they're saying.
So
but from a joke point of view, I am.
He then quotes Einstein of allowing a thought expand or whatever.
A thought experiment, yeah. Let's just do an Albert Einstein thought experiment, shall we?
And I think the Einstein quote ends at the word thought experiment. Because what he says is, eventually, it would be too expensive to have slaves. Because if you look at the cost of clothes, living, housing, food, it will be too expensive. But if we leave them in, and he picks out an African village and things, and then says, if we left them there, the cost of which, and then because where the satirical comes in, that's what we've actually done.
That's what we did.
That is where the child, because it goes in America, we can't make use of the youth market due to
laws.
What's it? Bullish child. Like restrictive, basically to imply these laws are bullshit. We can't. But there is an adjective he uses which is very funny within it. The fact you can do that in a straight phrase is fucking hilarious. And then he gets a round of applause for the ripping the suit off.
He gets an applause break he rips the suit off to display the gold suit underneath, and everybody suddenly out of their hangover state watching went, hang on, everyone. Some shit's going down here. Pay attention, Denise.
I'm like, amazing. I take back everything I was about to say about Dale, because this has now become a very fucking funny documentary to me. That what they're doing. Not the most charismatic guys. And you see this like giant phallic come up and he's got a screen on.
Yep.
He's explaining how you can get like electric impulses into your arse to show that children aren't working hard enough. So you can press a button that can then electrocute them while you're working out in America. Because one of the main problems is lazy workers and the bosses work so hard they don't get to work out. Yes. And that's, again, foreshadowing what they see the World Trade Organization's ethics to be.
Yeah. But the thing that got me here, this is where I really started disliking these two blokes, right? And I know their intentions are good, but you don't know the beliefs of the people who are sitting there, right? And so effectively, they're just wasting their time. And what and it changes around in a second, but effectively, they're wasting the time of these 100-odd people. But then they turn it around, don't they? So they get into the press with that stunt because everyone thinks it's genuine. Yeah, and it starts gaining traction.
Yeah, so Time magazine and things like that.
And they're starting to get recognised for what they're saying. And and the weird thing is, no one is batting an eyelid that we're talking about treating human beings like this.
Yeah,
that's the state of the world that we're in.
And that's the scary moment. They're just clicking the pens going, all right, yeah, I probably wouldn't wear that, but I can see it.
Yeah.
And then it's funny, whenever they say the word anti-globalization, since I'm not particularly genned up on this stuff, the only time I ever hear the word globalization is of Alex Jones And
okay.
there is, and he's like, the globalists are coming for you. The globalists are making this happen. And it's a globalist one world agenda that's going to take away your freedoms, and you need to buy this cyanide toothpaste I've made.
Me and you go on very, very different websites.
Well, I went into the whole conspiracy thing when I was first unemployed, like what most people do. And unfortunately, I have friends that are a lot smarter than me that point stuff out.
Right.
That is why I'm lucky. I'm like a baby falling from a tree, and I just happen to hit the right branches, and I haven't hit the ground yet.
Yeah, okay.
That is basically where I am in my world opinion. I've been very fortunate in the people around me, and then, unfortunately, the people who haven't left Chester Street aren't, because there's a lot of times I'm having to get in discussions not too dissimilar to ours, but on far worse subjects.
The thing about anti-globalists, it really cracks me up. Now, globalization, again, has been around for tens of thousands of years. Where do you think we got salts from? Where do you think we got pepper from? Spices. We've been globalizing shit for fucking thousands of years. That's how we evolved as a species. The fact that we travelled overseas to experience other cultures. Okay, sometimes it didn't go well, and we enslaved those cultures. I'm not promoting that, but what I'm saying is, pepper really helps with your cooking. So go globalization.
I know, but again, we live in an age of information, Matt. Which, if you discovered that pepper was actually, boiled cats from fucking Candonesia or fucking wherever you want, then you'd be like, you know what? I don't really want pepper anymore. Glad I knew that.
I found out the other week, right, that I think it must have been on a document. We must have spoke about this. The world shouldn't use insecticides, right? So you kind of think if you buy fruit from a supermarket, it hasn't used insecticides. But that's only if you buy fruit that comes from the United Kingdom. You buy fruit that comes from Peru, they haven't got the same legislation that we have in the UK. So I'm chomping down blueberries like by the literally the bucket load.
I've seen Matt eat blueberries out of a see-through plastic bag like someone spoilt a homeless person many a time. You tell me those blueberries are bad for you after all that misery that I've seen you put yourself through.
But yeah, and you're like, shit. So I think I've just lost my point is, right, globalization is here. It'd be like trying to put the internet back in the bottle. It's out, and it's been out for long enough.
I think, all right, if I'm trying to weevil through my degree of getting to know Matt Wills, right, which again, you never know what the next module is going to be. That's the joy of the course. Right. I think you're a completionist. You hate a task that remains unfinished.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the idea that this task is so monumental, right, that these people will never make a dent. It has to be a snowball that rolls down a hill, and moves on.
I've never loved you more. Carry on.
This will never be a Rubik's Cube that gets completed, and you're like, I don't like this existing.
So why bother starting? If you cannot finish the game, we might as well let the Mexicans die. There is part of my brain, and I don't like the fact that I think that way.
Yeah, me neither.
I know I can change that, but
I mean, less editing.
This episode's going to come out. Hey, how are you? I'm Matt. That's Rick. Anyway, thanks for joining us on Right versus Left. Come back next week for more shit.
Another one where Matt spoke from the heart. But I think it is something wired like that because you're not a bad person. You're not.
No,
you're not a greedy person. You're a very helpful person. You're a very charitable person. But there is something where if I had to deal with it, you have to deal with it. And this needs to be done when you said it was going to be done.
Yes, yeah. I have to edit this, Rick. No, you don't have to edit it. You could be a bit late posting that.
Exactly.
That
last week,
no, I can't,
last
Rick.
week we did
idiot.
The episode before the Germany game, and I was like, Matt, don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be posted at 7 a.m. If you're one of those listeners that is like, we'll lose our fan base if we're not done by 7, you could do it in the afternoon and post it out that day, as long as it kind of comes out that day. If it comes out the next day, well, say sorry, we're late, boom. But no, Matt stayed up till 3 a.m, which I don't think he's quite right in his sleeping pattern since doing that to get it done. And the timing effort he spent to edit it to make it sound like I didn't say England would win 2-0 is disgusting. I always believed it was coming home.
It is coming home.
Yeah, there's a lot of things fell in our favour. I actually believe it's coming home. Even Italy had their best player tore their cruciate ligaments the other day.
Have you changed your view? Do you think so? Because last week you were slagging down
Southgate in the selection, and I thought Germany could win.
How do you feel now?
Now we're past Germany. I don't think Denmark could. I don't think Denmark's a walkover for them, because I think if we go a goal down, we've got some serious problems. But the teams that are left in the tournament, we never have a better chance.
I think our biggest battle is going to be the game on Wednesday against Denmark rather than the final. And the reason I'm saying that is because Denmark, me and my sister had a big chat about this on Saturday night. Denmark are playing with emotion and love for a man who almost died. And with that wind behind their sails, it is really driving them on. Whereas we've got is we want to win and we've got the talent to win. Effectively, I think what we need is someone like Declan Rice to take one for the team, or maybe one of the lesser players who doesn't play for West Ham United, take one for the team.
Well, Declan Rice come the summer transfer window opening.
Well, no, we need one of them to do a night on the Charlie, fuck their heart up, so we get that same, we've got to play for Billy because Billy had a heart attack. We need that. So I need one of the team.
I don't think our players have that much soul. I think if one of our players goes down, the guy on the bench just starts warming up.
Bring in number 12, please. Bring in number 12.
Bring in 80 million pound midfielder number 4, please. Thank you very much.
But no, listen, I think, and I said this the other day, and I say this every tournament, we are going to win the tournament.
I think there's a very good chance of that now.
Yeah.
But I also think Denmark are good defensively. And
yes.
They can sneak a goal.
Yes.
And it'll be embarrassing because it'll be an ex-Middlesbrough player that scores past this multi-million-pound team.
Yeah.
Andreas Christensen might be the player of the tournament, their centre-back. Kasper Schmeichel's world-class. He's like his dad.
Yes.
But we should win. I think Kane might get the golden boot because if we score early against them, they're a defensive team. And I think Kane, if he needs 3 goals to match the top goal scorer, and I think he can do it within a couple.
And if I'm not mistaken, the British government have almost naturalised Hun Song Ming, so he's going to be on the team shortly, because I'm sure we would have left a gap for him.
So here's my prediction, my out of left field. I think we win on Wednesday.
Yeah.
By the finals on Sunday.
Yeah.
By Friday, everyone has COVID.
What, and we win by default?
In the England team, we get fucked over. This is something that has never happened before. No one's ever done this during a fucking pandemic. They're not socially distancing on the touchlines, the sidelines. I don't see them walking around with gloves, masks on, any of that shit. And they're traveling from country to country. I think an outbreak is due in one of those teams. Now, the way of our luck's going, it might be the Italians.
That's weird, isn't it? We wish the horrible disease on the non-English people because we want a trophy. Because it would really help the national psyche. Yeah.
I had my mum round for the match because I'm starting to have the thing like, oh, do you want to come round ours? And I was like, I'm doing this. You can join me if you like. As a nice little olive branch boundary, right? So she came around and bless her, she got it. She practically had a St. George's flag on her face. And
was she painted up? Oh, lovely.
No, she didn't, but she came with that kind of energy.
Good for her.
She came with that kind of energy. She had a T-shirt on that was a football, and when you rubbed it, it said goal. So every time there was a goal, she rubbed it.
Hang on. Every time a team scored, your mum rubbed her boobs. That's all I'm hearing.
Yeah,
here.
She did turn around and say her tits were hurting. I'm like, I'm not comfortable with this rhetoric. So she came out with that, and every time there's a foul or a throw-in, she's like, oh, come on, referee. And it's like, even if it was a foul or a throw-in. And you've seen me watch football. I'm dull. I'm like, I signed him on Football Manager at the age of 18.
Yeah. You're Stato, if you remember Stato.
Yeah. So it's just, and I says to Kate, I'm really sorry. I think I've become really dull. I think that's me now. I'm like, the way they defend 70% possession, I think we could win. And they're like, Vindaloo.
It's your mum rubbing her boobs. Come on, lads.
I'm like, if you put a flag out my window, I am fucking chucking you out with it. All right, I have not. I'm not being one of those.
That might stop the schoolboys knocking on your door. Right, back to the documentary though.
So they get invited. So they get invited to a conference in Australia, and they go and meet a statistician for what's the charity?
Well, actually, it's the guy they first spoofed on the market thing called Barry Coates from the World Development Movement. And he doesn't recognise them, even though they're playing a video of him arguing about, well, your kids just need to think like us rather than like you.
Yeah,
and he's like, you spoofed me.
But again, the reveals of these things, it looks so low budget, and so there's no pizzazz to it. So they go in there talking to him, and you can see them talking outside beforehand. They're hoping for a big reveal moment. And the guy who was on the show with him is literally putting his face by the screen, hoping he recognizes him.
And he doesn't. Yeah.
They have to lead him down the path and go, we're just going to pause it for a second. Oh, there's no pause function on your VHS player. Okay, I'm going to play it again. Do you recognize anyone? And then he finally gets it, and he takes it well, and it's a nice little moment. But that modern day would have been set up and produced better for the reveal.
Yes. But the thing is about that Barry Coates is Australian, the guy they first spoofed. And effectively, he's been in England too long, because he said, I did notice the similarities, but I didn't want to say anything out of politeness. That is such an English mentality, isn't it? He's shitting on my head right now. I'm not going to say anything because it might seem rude to the shitter. The politeness that we have in this country just beggars belief. And that Australian Barry had picked too much of it up. But they go to him to ask
a whole heap of that politeness while people are barking at me dog, Matt.
Well, there is that. Yeah. But they might be doing it politely.
There's two very different Englands. So they go to him for stats on the WTO, and they want to be genned up. Again, they're very thorough in the message they're getting across and what they're putting up. And
the reason they can travel about, right, and this was fascinating, is they get a chunk of money from Herb Alpert. Now, do you know who? Now, Herb Alpert, he's a trumpeter. And I'm like, how the hell did they get money from Herb Alpert? I'm fairly sure he did Rocket. He is the fourth richest person in the music industry. He's a trumpeter because he set up A&M Records.
Did he fuck over the Sugar Man?
Yeah, he was probably somehow involved in that, yeah. But Herb Alpert is a musician as well as a businessman. So, and he supports these crazy guys to carry on doing what they're doing. And here's the interesting thing. The three people who are richer than Herb Alpert are Jay-Z, Paul McCartney, and Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Wow.
England! England! Go England, man. Go England. This is why it's coming home, Rick. This is what we do well. Football, music, and comedy. Well, second to the Americans on comedy. All right, football and music. Okay, music. Here's what we do well. Music and villains in films.
I don't know. Oasis was a long, long time ago.
Yeah, but Andrew Lloyd Webber
was even longer ago.
Andrew Lloyd and Paul McCartney is still number 2. The only person who's beaten him is Jay-Z.
I don't class Andrew Lloyd Webber as music. I think he's in the theatre, and that is a closed racket shop that he happens to be at the top of.
But no, hang on. Andrew Lloyd Webber's a musician. He's a composer.
I thought he just directed plays.
No, he wrote him and Tim Rice does the lyrics. He does the music. Well, here's the good thing about Andrew Lloyd Webber. He is currently suing the British government because they've allowed people back to football matches, but they won't allow people back into the theatre.
Oh.
And he's like, well, you can't do that.
What he doesn't realise is the class of people that go to football matches, they're willing to let die with COVID, whereas his crowd, it would be a needle mover in their donations.
Well done. Yeah. Back to the documentary. Just to close off the Herb Alpert thing. So Herb Alpert supports the Yes Men by giving them money. And Mr. Alpert, if you are listening, but me and Rick we'd like a little bit of support if you want to sign up to the Patreon, Herb. knock yourself out.
I want to know what you did to fucking Sugar Man, Herb. I don't give a fuck about the money. I know you got blood on your hands somewhere.
Hang on, Sugar Man he didn't get that screwed over. That wasn't.
Yeah, he did.
He just didn't get the promo behind him. That was all.
No,
like you said, because his name was Rodriguez.
He sold so many records in South Africa. That's a living.
They played it on there was one record that every person in South Africa, he sold one record. It just got shared around.
Record. Everyone owned it.
No, you couldn't buy it. That was the problem there. They shared around the one record.
They bought them. The guy in the record store in the dock. Do we need to watch Sugar Man again?
We probably do. I thought because the
How
South African
angry
government
did the dude from
that
thing get? All right. Okay, we're going to stick to this documentary, but
Sugar
he got screwed
Man.
over.
Right, back
and
to this.
We've probably got at least 800 Patreon fans in Peru right now, and they're like, I hope these guys are just getting the money, and it's not coming through.
Yeah, we're not stopping a revolution yet. That's it. That's what we're not doing.
Can't wait for that private jet to come out and me and you go on that little tour. The foam vape pens.
And then it gets diverted to Saudi Arabia because something happened with the fuel line. So their presentation in Australia is about a thing called Reburger. And the minute they said it, my brain went, oh, well, if I was going to do that, I'd sell it like this. That's exactly what they did.
It's hilarious. So there's a whole thing. So the Australian conference wasn't attended enough. It was going to be cancelled. They were having a run-through of it at a New York university. So they're in front of students this time.
Yeah.
And the students get their back up. They are saying what they hoped people would say.
Yes.
And they are keeping it cool. So the Reburger is basically about how people in the third world, what McDonald's can do is recycle their waste, and the person can eat the same burger 10 times.
Now, when they say waste, what they mean here is you eat your burger, you poo it out, and because the body's not that efficient, you lose about 80% of the good stuff in the burger in the poo. So what they do is they recycle the poo and just return the poo into burgers for poor people. And the students get disgusted by this. At the same time,
they pull them up with different things.
They're all eating hamburgers that these fellas gave them.
Yeah, that's the
which
one
was
thing
brilliant.
I'll get to that. But they're picking him up on his problematic language before that along the way. And one person
they're
goes,
eating
"Excuse
hamburgers.
me, have you ever been to a third world country?" Went, "I've seen them in pictures." And I just thought that was so funny. His calm, you guys are just like wrong about stuff. It was so funny and antagonistic the way he subtly did it. The thing that got me is because I use brilliant language. Well, goes the thing is with trade liberalization and what this can do for the world, and but there is facts. The fact is these people are worse than us, and that's just a fact of life. So if we need to use that the best. And focus groups have actually shown people like that. What they never did is what I thought they were going to do is imply that they were eating a reused burger.
Yes. And I'm wondering if they did do that, but it didn't work out well.
I would have showed it because that would have been something happening.
Now, this leads us to a really interesting point because eating poo, we discussed in episode 64, the Gringo, the strange life, the dangerous life of John McAfee. Now, I did
match weird.
Yeah. Now,
soapboxes.
I've since done some investigation into eating poo because I was fascinated by it. Right.
I thought I struck a chord with you there. Right. Look, these people are doing it.
Now, here's the thing. So I was defending this guy eating poo. And here's what I've since learned. If you do want to eat poo, what you have to do is you freeze it or you can boil it, but you kill the bacteria and then you can repack it up the place it came from once it's frozen because you've killed the bacteria. So I spoke to my mate about it and I was saying to him, it's not disgusting, is it? And he went, oh, God, no. He said the scat community is huge with, it's big. And they take offence to people saying it's disgusting. They also take offence to people saying it's not disgusting because some of the reasons they like doing it is because it's disgusting. But here's the beautiful quote he gave me. You don't yuck on somebody else's yum. The defence rests, Your Honour. So, Rick.
Well, the jury didn't take long a deliberation for that one, let me tell you.
And so the whole student thing happens. Then eventually they land in Sydney Airport. I start getting flashbacks when I saw the Sydney Airport sign to that time the customs guy stopped me because I was put on the plane because I was so drunk, and they did all them horrible things to me. And then they do the Australian conference, and it just, I don't know, man. Listen to my note here that I wrote. I don't like these chaps. They are just wasting people's time. And again, that popped up because I wrote that earlier. They are wasting people's time. And
I disagree on that. I think what they did was a lot of effort, and it all comes down to one moment.
Yeah,
because
I think they judged the Australian culture wrong, because my experience of the Australian culture is they're incredibly liberal to a point. Obviously, they've got some weird stuff going on over there in terms of immigration, a bit like we have in our country, but they're really fair. So, for instance, they're builders. If a builder comes around your house and he agrees to do something, they have to sign a contract, which means they are duty bound by law that they have to do that. You can't just have a rogue builder. It's not a thing that exists out there. They enter into a contract with the people. They have unions that are genuinely represented, and they're really fair. So the people I know in Australia, they just seem to have a more balanced society, not dissimilar, I think, to New Zealand, who have a similar, it seems to me a better society, especially than America. And the fact that these two Americans have gone over there to take the piss, and all the Australians that they do this to have come out afterwards and gone, because they said, we're going to disband the World Trade Organization. All the Australians are like, yeah.
Hang back a sec. Let's just unpack that, because I think...
Let's not ever use the term unpack again.
Yeah, because it's completely normal and doesn't invoke any disgust and imagery in our minds, because it's completely normal. It has a community. How can it be weird?
So maybe we should yak on a yum.
So let's pull this thought out of Matt's arse, freeze it, and then stick it back up his arse. Because that's what you do. So you have taken a few different aspects of Australian culture you've seen and slammed this with their intentions, which it is not. What they are sending up, what they are against, is who they are, which is represent themselves as the World Trade Organization. So who they talk to is irrelevant. What they're surprised at is how people will accept this is the World Trade Organization. So their goal, their send up, the people who's they're getting at, is the company that's not there because they're there in their place, mistakenly booked. It's nothing like, let's go to Australia because the way they do things is wrong or anything like that. No, they've went there and went, we're the World Trade Organization, and by the way, there is a thing where we're trying to legalize having toddlers work in sweatshops in regular countries as well, because why should it just be the poor people? It's unfair on the toddlers. And it's funny that people go, yeah, that sounds about right for the World Trade Organization. And then that gets mainstream press because it's an outlandish gesture.
25,000 press agencies picked that up.
Yep. And then that is what they're sending up. Whereas you're like, you've wasted these... Because companies are sending you on bullshit things all the time anyway. You've probably been to a few yourself, conferences.
Loads.
And it's not like you ever come away with a whole heap. And even whatever you do, you're just reporting back to the guy above you, and he goes, very good, we can sign off that we've seen that, or we can comply with these regulations. So what they do on this one is they're going to disband the WTO, is what they've said. So,
well, I think disband is wrong. What they're going to do is refocus the WTO's efforts to focus more on humanity rather than trade. And the Australians they speak to about, and they ask for comments, all the Australians are like, well, it's about bloody time, mate.
Yeah. Again, which is a good response to have. And what they do is they even say it's more boring being sincere than satirical. You can see they're not as into it. Because they find it funny to have that big image of, we're going to make you eat shit burgers, or we're going to have a giant dick with a TV screen on it. And now they're like, okay, the WTO, we're going to announce there's a press release later, it's going to disband because we found we've moved away from our core values, which are the principles we started this, and it has now become what we're doing now. Yeah. We find that we think it's inherently wrong, and we will break it down, and we'll move a step towards a better path. And they have talking heads that people come out going, yeah, I mean, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and we have to stop this. They're saying it's a terrific move. And just the fact that these business people are saying that, and then you get one guy who's the Matt Wills going, well, you know, I'm a bit cynical towards how this gets done and how it'll affect our bottom line. And I just, you know, I want a new cafetiere at the weekend, so I don't know if to think I'm not going to step on a dying child to get it. But I think it is a valid point. Is it particularly well done? I think the actual stunts are. But the rest of it is why it seems like a lower rent documentary. This is why it took a while to even know that this was a documentary. But I think it's a fascinating watch.
I think it was very much. You could see Michael Moore was probably he's probably an exec producer, right? I didn't see that on the things, but the beautiful thing to come out of the Australian thing, and the reason they done the stunt, it's not. And to be fair to them, it is not to waste the time of the poor Australians who were there. It was to say what they said publicly, representing the World Trade Organization, so it could go out to the 25,000 press agencies and gain some traction. And maybe people at the World Trade Organization said, oh, is that a thing? Because it then got quoted, their stunt got quoted as a genuine fact in the Canadian Parliament. And the guy was like, you know, what we're going to do about the bloody World Trade Organization? They're turning their hand to humanity. How's that good for trade? Oh, okay, mate. Yeah, I got you.
So there's a few facts and figures, which again is much like your Seaspiracy, much like your Game Changers. They didn't put in they didn't bombard you with them, but through the end they had some interesting ones. So the WTO who make the regulations, they're not elected officials, nor can you vote on what they do. No. It is across party lines. There's no debate within Congresses or Parliaments about what the WTO do, so it's completely unregulated. You have Brazil refusing to sign trade treaties, and they're losing their mind about it because they don't want other people to do this. So the statistic is poor countries lose up to $2 billion a day to unfair trade regulations, which is far more than what they're ever giving within aid from other countries. In Africa, patents, so like inventions and things patented, being filed, only 31 out of 26,000 were from African residents. Yeah. So there's no prosperity within the community. There is no building of their own. It is all, you're at the mercy of these relentless corporations that are just rolling over everything. And
but don't forget here, those corporations that are rolling over everything, we're all tied up to them. So everyone says, oh, it's bloody disgusting, right? But, you know, everyone's got a pension. That pension, all of that money is invested. Oh, okay. Well, anyone who's not you, who's got a pension, all of their pension is invested in the stock market, which these companies form part of. And your pension will do better if these companies do better. And it's the skin in the game argument again. But people forget about their pensions.
Since it's a Rubik's Cube that would never be fixed, it's not.
It doesn't compute in my mind.
Yeah, it just will not compute with you. But that's not. I think it's a case of, look, this is what they're doing. You need to know what they're doing because it's going through everyone.
This is why I cannot watch the news, because I get so broken by organizations like the World Trade Organization, because they are so damaging to poor people and just to people in general, as are, you know, large corporations to some respects. In other respects, they pay tax, they employ a lot of people.
Do they though? Because
some of them
that's
do.
Another thing
some of them do.
I mean,
but you can't say they all don't. Right? Not all companies avoid tax. A lot of someone's bloody paying tax, aren't they? Some companies are paying tax.
See, I don't know if they are. I imagine if we look it up. Right, okay, let's look this up just quickly. This is a podcast first, because I've got into a habit whenever my dad says something stupid, I Google it immediately and tell him he's wrong. Right, 1 second. Is the WTO a non-profit? Okay, that gave me a nonsensical answer, so I think I have my answer. 1 second. WTO salaries are generally exempt from income tax.
Yeah, but companies pay tax. Like, They do. Then you roll all companies into the same thing of they're all as bad as Vodafone or Amazon. They're not. Some companies
what I'm
are
saying
genuinely.
Is the guy who controls the companies that don't pay tax probably have a fucking little lever out the back themselves, Matt.
Yeah, I used to read Private Eye, and if you want a lesson in misery, read Private Eye, because their investigative journalists uncover stuff that will just blow you away. So, for instance, when I was reading Private Eye, they were going into the terrible stuff that Vodafone did to not pay tax. And do you know what Vodafone did with the UK government? They haggled. And they got a deal. Instead of paying X, I think it was X million, they paid like significantly less. And then do you know what Vodafone then done? The minister that they argued that with and who agreed it, when he stopped being a minister, you'll never guess who he went to work for.
Oh, Vodafone.
Vodafone. Yeah. It was disgraceful. And Private Eye are uncovering stuff like that all the time. There's a reason why Ian Hislop is the most sued man in the United Kingdom. It's because he runs a journalistic endeavour that uncovers shit like that. Private Eye's readership is so low because people couldn't give two fucks. They don't care. It's disgraceful. And that's the biggest problem. And on the Yes Men's website, they're saying, look, you need to care. You need to do shit. You need to bring to the attention of people that it matters. And if you want to go...
There's another way that you filter information. Because what they actually say is, if you would like to learn more, go to our website. Whereas you see it as a call to arms. You're like, I don't know if I want this war.
I think we should all join that war. I really do. And their website, just if you want it, is theyesmen.org. Now, here's the final thought on it from me, right? I have, just by talking to you over the last year doing these podcasts, I didn't realise I lent so much to the right.
I think the right really, really lends itself to OCD.
Maybe, yeah. But here's the weird thing. My dad was as working class as it gets. Yet I'm genuinely all about... Now, he ran his own business, and I'm all about the freedom of the business, right? Which in effect so you want less regulation, etc. But then the businesses behave terribly. Do you know who else's dad was a business keeper? And she was seen as a tyrant on the right wing? Margaret Thatcher. So it would seem the working class produced children who wish to tread down the working class.
Well, here's the thing. You didn't have a mind for someone to sling you into working and learn what it was like there, Matt.
Yeah. Well, it's like we're using poor people to climb up the ladder. It's disgraceful. I think I need to go and have a word with myself. I think that's what I need to do.
Nah, you don't. We'll watch a fun one next time.
I've got no short-term memory. All of this will go. It's just nonsense rhetoric.
Again, as a spectator, I have the opinion that we should be at least pretend to be socially conscious, but it is something that is so gargantuan to go up against.
Yes.
It's that. Yeah. The machine of it. It is like three men going against Skynet is what it is. And information is a power, and eventually, somewhere down the line, someone with the right intentions may get the opportunity to. That could be the spark that does that.
Yeah, and let's hope so, right? Because it ain't going to be me and you.
The effort that went into the stunts was fucking brilliant. And the stunts themselves, them standing up there in boring conference rooms, there's no showbiz or pizzazz to it whatsoever. No. It's an interesting endeavor, and there is a link that's going to be on our Facebook and Instagram to watch this, and I hope that's not someone that stole it and put it on YouTube and we're costing these guys, but I wouldn't pay to watch it again.
You didn't pay to watch it the first time round. What do you mean again?
No, would I? I just mean ethically. But yeah, I think this is worth checking out. What score are you giving this one, Matthew?
I am going to give this a 4 because I like the way it got me angry, and it got me thinking again, and it got me thinking, damn, I've gone too right.
Oh, Matt's also had 9 coffees today because he's left to his own devices. That could be a thing.
I did, yeah. I've moved to Essex temporarily to cat sit, and I've drunk. It wasn't. It was 2 jugs of coffee, and the jugs were massive. I mean, they were huge. I am buzzing my tits off. In my past, I've done cocaine. Not as good as this. I couldn't have been getting the good cocaine because I am buzzing off this coffee. It's awesome. So yeah, it's a healthy 4 from me.
You've been cat sitting for to be listening to goes, oh fuck, he's found the Blue Mountain. He's found the Blue Mountain. Greedy little bastard, I knew he would.
I'm going to need a downer, which, if I'm not mistaken, that is 3 Magnum ice creams, just to level myself out with the sugar crash, to take the edge off the caffeine. And what about your good self, my handsome friend? What are you going to score this bad boy?
I'm giving this one a 4. This has highlights.
Wow.
The boring bits melt away in your brain. We struggle to even remember what they did in between the interesting bits, but what these guys set out to do. And what I'm giving it a 4. So it's a verge between a 3.5 and a 4, but I'm leaning more towards a 4. I've got Dale's reputation for picking documentaries remains intact. I've only got so much patience for shit-looking documentaries, Dale.
But I think we have turned down. I think we've turned down like 2 of his other requests.
One was a 15-minute video with a mate of his in it. Come on, we've got to have some integrity here.
And if you want to be like Dale. Everyone wants to be like Dale. You can easily do that by signing up to our Patreon. I believe it's tier level 2 to be like Dale, and you get 3 picks a year, a shout out of love, some genuine thanks because that does help support the podcast, and some other stuff that
Matt's got an expensive coffee bill when his mate gets back home, so that's what Dale's money went to this month. But also, as mentioned in the last one, we are going to start reading out listener reviews of documentaries because we had some funny ones. I'll do the first one next time around. If you wish to send one of a documentary that we've seen, if you go to the Facebook page or what's our Twitter handle that you've managed to somehow get?
At DiscussPod or at Discussing Documentaries on Instagram, Discussing Documentaries on Facebook.
Send it across and we'll read that out because we've got some very funny listeners as well.
In the show notes as well, every link that you ever need from the Patreon to the email address, it's all in the show notes, which should be on your little screen. And you should, if I've done it right, just click on it.
Stop shilling just a second there, Matt. Also,
everyone wants to be like Matt.
As I said last week, this week I will start saying what documentary we're going to do next.
If you could,
so that you have time to watch it. Yeah. Well, I didn't know until the other day. It's been a long week.
It has been a long week. What's the next documentary then?
I'm not sure, but given what time we're recording this, there's probably some kids about to bark at my dog, so I'll go downstairs and keep an eye out for that.
Well, thanks as always for listening, joining in. This has genuinely been a pleasure. Rick, thanks for making me laugh and putting up with my right-wing tendencies and my coffee buzz. Any final words? I didn't even
think I was political before doing this with you, Matt.
I don't think you are. I think you're just talking me off the ledge. Right, say goodbye then, my friend.
Thank you very much for listening. Brilliant.
Ta-da.